Okay, so hear me out. Picture this. It's the boss fight, the whole party's on edge, and...
Let me guess, someone tries to seduce the dragon?
Not just the dragon, Grom. The dragon god. And, they rolled a natural one. It was so bad.
Of course, because nothing screams prepared party like trying to flirt with the deity of destruction mid-battle. Let me guess, did they have any backup plans?
Backup plans? Oh, no. Their whole backup plan was... Are you ready for this? Convincing the cleric to pray for divine intervention. Who, let's be real, wasn't even paying attention. I think they were organizing their inventory or something.
Right. Because invoking the favor of the gods is always a surefire backup strategy when plan A is romantic diplomacy.
Ah, exactly. And the DM's just sitting there, torn between wanting to bang their head on the screen or lean into the chaos. Guess which one they chose.
Knowing how most DMs operate? Chaos every time. What happened?
Oh, what didn't happen? The dragon gods offended, obviously, so it sets the entire room on fire. No saving throws. Boom. Instant TPK.
A total party kill because someone thought divine beasts respond well to pickup lines. That's impressive in all the wrong ways.
And yet, it was iconic. Everybody still talks about it like it was the greatest disaster they've ever witnessed. Which, is kind of true.
Let me double-check something. This wasn't your character causing the meltdown, was it?
What? Me? No. I mean, I was the cleric. But in my defense, I didn't even hear the flirting because I was sorta, okay, fine, maybe rearranging my healing potions.
I knew it. Honestly, though, it's situations like these that remind me why structured planning always beats chaotic improvisation.
Oh, come on. Chaos like that creates stories people never forget. Planned sessions? They're great, but when a session tanks spectacularly, that's where the legends are made, Grom.
Legends or cautionary tales. Perspective matters, I suppose.
Says the guy who still hasn't recovered from that bardic duel disaster, remember? Who needs combatability when you can play the lute really well?
We're not talking about that. Ever.
Touchy. But seriously, there's a fine line between chaos and what we're here to discuss. The dreaded red flags that can tank a session. Like, when does quirky turn into disruptive? So, building on that, when does something like a quirky obsession with cheese wheels, which starts out fun and lovable, cross the line into being a red flag?
Quirky is fine, even encouraged. But when it disrupts the game or overshadows the rest of the party, that's when we're entering red flag territory. The cheese wheel obsession. If it's the only way that character engages in the story, then it's a problem.
Oh no, not the cheese wheels. But seriously, I think we all know that player who takes the quirky trait way too far. Like, my character won't talk to anyone unless they also like cheese.
Exactly. And it's not always about quirks either. Sometimes it's how someone insists their character is just naturally abrasive to justify arguments with the party at every opportunity.
Oh, or the infamous lone wolf types. I don't need the group. I'm a lone rogue. Leave me in the shadows. Like, buddy, this is a team game. Maybe let us know when you're done brooding so we can actually play.
And that's the core of it. The role-playing needs to serve the group, not just the individual. A character's quirks or flaws should add to the story, not derail it.
Right. And I think sometimes people might not even realize they're being disruptive. I mean, maybe they just love the spotlight too much, or
maybe they think they're being clever.
Hey, it's possible. Although sometimes it comes down to how those behaviors repeat over and over. Like, okay, I love me a good prankster bard, but if your solution to every problem is I cast vicious mockery, it's gonna wear thin.
It's about balance. A good DM can weave quirks into the game, but the player has to want to mesh with the group too. Otherwise, they risk becoming a distraction.
All right, So here's my challenge. Can you, Mr. Serious, think of a time where a red flag trait actually made a session better?
I can. But it's a thin line, Elara, and I'm talking about an exception, not a rule.
All right, you mentioned exceptions, and I can think of one: murder hobos. Why do they exist? Like, is it a rite of passage for every new player to at least consider becoming one?
It's not so much a rite of passage as it is, well, a default mindset for some players. If you strip a TTRPG down to its mechanics, you've got stats, weapons, and enemies. Some people just see that and think, oh, I'm supposed to fight everything.
Sure, I get that. But why the impulse to turn every campaign into a bloodbath? Like, do some players just wake up and choose chaos?
Sometimes, yes. Chaos can be appealing. It's unstructured, unpredictable, and frankly, easy. But more often, I think it's a lack of understanding. These players either don't grasp collaborative storytelling yet, or they just don't care enough to try.
Oof, harsh. I think sometimes it's also just nerves. Like, some people want to make an impact early on, so they, stab the tavern NPC for no reason. It's almost like they're shouting, "Notice me, DM senpai."
And the irony is, it usually backfires. A murder hobo party burns through every potential ally, every plot thread, every moment of depth, until they're left wondering why they're bored.
True. But, okay, sometimes chaos can work, right? Like maybe it adds an unexpected twist. You just need to control it a little.
Control being the key word. There's a difference between chaos that enhances the story and chaos that derails it completely. A good DM might lean into unexpected actions and craft something engaging, but there's a limit.
Oh, like when the murder hobos go from quirky rogues to straight-up evil dictators. Seen it. Been in that campaign. It got awkward, fast.
Or when the kleptomaniac decides every shiny object they see belongs to them, regardless of context. It's novel at first, but eventually someone's going to ask, why hasn't this character been arrested yet?
Right? Or what about the lone wolves? Like, do they ever actually add to the story, or are they just there to brood in the corner until combat starts?
They can add something, but only when the player makes an effort to tie their personal storyline back into the group's. If they're just wandering off on their own, it gets frustrating fast for both the DM and the party.
Exactly. Especially when the party's all, "Hey, we're over here trying to save the kingdom," and Broody McShadowpants is like, "Nah, I'm searching for my tragic backstory in the woods."
And that's the heart of the issue. These behaviors, murder hoboing, kleptomania, lone wolfing, are self-indulgent. They prioritize the individual over the group.
Have you ever seen disruptive play actually work? Speaking of disruptive play, what about the main character types? How do you stop them from hijacking every session without, crushing their enthusiasm?
It's a delicate balance. You don't want to dampen their excitement, but at the same time, the game isn't about any one person. It's collaborative storytelling, not an improv monologue.
True, but you've got to admit, sometimes their energy can be kind of contagious. Like, sure, they interrupt a little or a lot, but it's not always malicious, right?
Not always, no. Often it's driven by excitement or a desire to contribute more. But when that enthusiasm starts overshadowing everyone else's contributions, that's when it becomes a problem.
Right. And, okay, let's put it out there. Sometimes, and I say this with love, it might actually come from insecurity.
Insecurity? You mean they're compensating for something by dominating the spotlight?
Exactly. Or maybe they just feel like they'll be left out otherwise. Like, if they're not steering the ship, who's going to notice them?
I can see that, and that's where the DM or even the party comes in. Redirecting those players can be as simple as giving them specific moments to shine, but also ensuring they step back when it's someone else's turn.
Oh, totally. Like, toss them a bone every now and then, but also gently remind them that it's a team effort. It's like when someone keeps stealing all the lines in a group improv game. You want their energy, but not at the expense of everyone else.
And they need to understand that too. A session where everyone feels heard and valued will be more memorable than one where it's just the so-and-so show every time.
Grom with the sentiment. But seriously, accountability is key here, yeah? Like, if you keep letting it slide, you're just teaching them it's okay.
Exactly. Addressing it doesn't have to be harsh, though. Sometimes something as simple as slowing the pace or asking a quieter player for input can redirect the spotlight without escalating tension.
And if they don't take the hint?
That's when the DM needs to step in directly. A private conversation can often save a lot of heartache. But again, it's about framing it as encouragement, not criticism.
Oof, private conversations. Love them, hate them. But yeah, I guess it's better than the DM snapping mid-session like, I swear, if you interrupt one more time...
Which, let's be honest, we've probably all seen happen at least once.
Oh, for sure. And, hey, I'll admit it, I've been the overenthusiastic player before. You just get so into it. But when I realised people were kind of shrinking back, game changer. You gotta learn to read the room.
And that self-awareness is critical. If players can't recognize when their actions are impacting others, it's going to cause friction.
Totally. So basically, it's teamwork, helping them channel that enthusiasm while making sure everyone gets a moment in the sun. Easy, right?
Not easy, but worth it.
So, speaking of balance, like we talked about with overenthusiastic players, here's a big one. Where do we draw the line between pushing creative boundaries and just straight up destroying immersion?
It's a tough line to walk. Creativity is what makes TTRPGs special, but when someone pushes too far or in the wrong way, it can make the whole table uncomfortable. Or worse, ruin the session entirely.
Right. Like that one guy everyone's met who thinks their low-key offensive joke is just edgy humour. Newsflash. It's not. It's just weird. And not, haha, weird.
Exactly. Jokes like that don't land. They crater. And when it crosses into disrespect, it's no longer about creative risk. It's disruptive and inappropriate. Plain and simple.
Oof, true. But, okay, let's talk about intent. What if someone thinks they're just being funny or trying to lighten the mood? Do they even know they're being disruptive?
Sometimes they don't, but intent doesn't erase impact. If a comment or action takes people out of the narrative or makes them uncomfortable, it's already too far. Awareness is key.
Yeah, and once the mood's been shattered, it's so hard to get back on track. Like, great, now we're not fighting the evil sorcerer. We're fighting secondhand awkwardness.
And awkwardness is contagious. You can almost see everyone at the table trying to figure out how to respond, or worse, just shutting down completely.
Oh, totally. And then you get the ripple effect. You know, where people start pulling back, getting quiet, and suddenly the whole vibe's just off.
Which is why it's so important to set the tone early. If the group agrees on boundaries and expectations at the start, it's much easier to handle any boundary-pushing behaviors when they arise.
Yeah, like a session 0. Honestly, every campaign needs one. A little, hey, here's what's cool and here's what's not. Chat. Saves so much drama later.
Absolutely. Establishing shared expectations makes it clear what kind of humor, actions, or stories are fair game. It creates a foundation for trust, and trust is critical for immersion.
Oh, for sure. But what happens when someone ignores all that? Like, I've seen players who treat session 0 like a suggestion, not a rulebook.
When that happens, addressing the behavior becomes necessary. Ideally, the GM or even the group should have a conversation to course correct before things escalate.
Okay, but it's not just jokes, right? It's also players who push the envelope too hard, like trying to sabotage the party for fun, or doing something so wild it pulls everyone out of the moment.
Right. One-off surprises can add excitement, but when pushing the envelope becomes a pattern, that's when it crosses into self-indulgence. A rogue going off script once might work, but consistently derailing sessions just alienates the group.
Exactly. It's got to serve the story, not just the individual. Otherwise, it's like, congrats, you're not a boundary pusher. You're just that player. All right, so speaking of those moments where immersion breaks, how often does it feel like the GM ends up playing babysitter rather than storyteller when things start going off the rails?
More often than they'd probably like to admit. And sometimes, Elara, it's less about babysitting and more about building the right framework. Structure matters.
Oh, you love a good structure, don't you?
I do, because structure prevents chaos. Establishing tools like Session Zero conversations, using safety tools like the X card, and openly addressing expectations can save GMs and players a world of trouble.
X cards are great. I've seen a couple of tables use them, but not every group buys into safety tools, sadly. So what happens when a GM just skips that part?
Well, skipping it doesn't magically make the risks disappear. At best, it's naive. At worst, it's dangerous. Without clear boundaries, you're essentially rolling a d20 on whether someone has a bad session or a bad experience.
Yikes. Critical fail. But okay, let's give GMs a little grace here. Sometimes they're not enabling red flags on purpose, right? Like, maybe they just don't see the signs.
True, GMs aren't omniscient, but ignoring subtle red flags like a player consistently breaking group dynamics eventually lets those issues fester. And then it's not just a red flag, it's an entire crimson banner waving in your face.
Oof, yeah. Nobody wants what could have been a quirk to escalate into, oh no, this session's ruined now. So, what can players do in that case? Like, how do you help each other without stepping on toes?
Communication. Plain and simple. If you're at the table and feel like someone's actions are causing discomfort or frustration, bring it up. Ideally without confrontation, and away from the table if needed.
Totally. Like, sometimes it's as simple as, hey, just so you know, when your barbarian smashed the beloved magic shop guy, it kinda derailed the story for me.
Exactly. Feedback doesn't have to sound like criticism. Another option? Support each other in the moment. If a player seems nervous or unsure, gently redirect their focus back to the group dynamic.
Oh, love that. Like turning a lone wolf solo broody act into a reason for the group to go, hey, let's check on them. Suddenly, it's a bonding moment, not a roadblock.
Precisely. It's all about maintaining trust, player to player and player to GM. That trust is what turns potential red flags into, well, teachable moments.
Ha! Teachable moments. Spoken like a true Grom.
I'll take that as a compliment. And really, it's about staying proactive. Letting things slide too long always makes resolving them harder later.
You know, Grom, hearing you talk about trust and teachable moments got me thinking. It's kind of like facing a tricky dungeon. You recognize the warning signs, but instead of panicking or running, you look for ways to adapt and move forward, right?
Exactly. They're not the end of the story. They're the beginning of a conversation. A chance to address potential issues before they spiral into... Well, we've seen the spirals.
We have. Oh, we have. But it's all about keeping lines of communication open, yeah? Like Session Zero, Lifesaver, Honest Feedback, Double Lifesaver, and Trust. That's the holy grail of group play.
Trust is key. Without trust at the table, every red flag feels like a scarlet wall separating players, rather than an opportunity to build something stronger together.
Oh, look at you, getting all poetic. But seriously, I think people underestimate how constructive confrontation can be. Like, when done right, it's not about blame. It's about growth.
Exactly. Growth as a group. And knowing how to approach those conversations, whether it's with a DM or another player, isn't just useful, it's essential.
Right. Like, instead of hiding behind, oh, it's just a game, you actually work through things. Because, honestly, This game works best when it's not just a game. It's storytelling. It's collaborative art.
Collaborative art, Elara? Are you feeling all right?
Hey, I can be deep when I want to be. But for real, I just think people should lean into addressing red flags. It's not about pointing fingers. It's about turning those moments into a better story for everyone involved.
And the key is focusing on the story. When players remember that everything, every action, quirk, flaw, should serve the group's narrative, the red flags become more manageable, even the biggest ones.
Biggest, like the time the rogue's quirk ended up derailing an entire campaign because their kleptomania got out of hand.
You'll have to be more specific. But yes, I know the type. These quirks often walk a fine line between adding depth and, frankly, driving everyone else insane.
Yup. And I'm just saying, sometimes quirky rogue ends up being party liability, especially when they've got, a skeleton or two in the closet. All right, Grom, speaking of party liabilities, let's talk about skeletons. Not the literal kind your wizard might summon, but the kind we all carry around. Secrets, bad choices, every group has them, right?
Exactly. The skeletons in the closet can add intrigue or disaster depending on how they're handled. A rogue slipping a jewel out of a noble's pocket might fuel a great subplot, but withholding that they did it, that's where it gets dangerous.
Oh, totally. You think you're just playing your character, but surprise! There's tension boiling over and, oops, now the cleric refuses to heal you because you jeopardized their sacred oath or whatever.
Which frankly is exactly why transparency and group cohesion are vital. Secrets can be fun, but they should ultimately enrich the story, not dismantle it. A rogue who takes only what they're willing to share? Great character depth. Hiding it and then acting like it's fine? Recipe for a fractured party.
Oh, and let's not forget the player part in this. Like, you got to read the room. Are you dragging others into your quirk at their expense? Because, trust me, no one likes feeling like the unwilling supporting cast in someone else's solo drama. Been there.
Agreed. A group's ability to navigate these red flag moments, both literal and metaphorical skeletons, depends on trust and communication. Addressing these issues sooner rather than later saves everyone a lot of frustration. It also prevents unnecessary rogue vs group showdowns.
Psh, unnecessary? Showdowns can be... Okay, fine. Yes, maybe leaving skeletons unspoken is a shortcut to chaos. But it also makes for amazing stories if you survive to tell them.
That's the key, though, surviving as a group. Tension is great when it drives the narrative forward, not when it drives the party apart. Have your secrets, but use them wisely. Play the rogue, but don't expect everyone to like that you stole from the king's vault.
Exactly. Or, set the vault on fire while you're at it, just to add some flavour. But seriously, sharing these juicy behind-the-scenes moments, that's what makes this game so unforgettable. Every group learns something from their disasters.
And on that note, let's invite our listeners into the confessional booth. We know your parties have had their fair share of skeletons and questionable rogue behavior, or any red flags that come to mind. Share those stories. We'd love to hear how your groups handled them.
Oh, yes. Drop your tales of TTRPG dirty laundry in the comments. Did your clutch save turn into a catastrophic TPK? Or did an innocent secret derail everything? We'll be all ears, and maybe slightly judgmental ones.
And, of course, we'll be back next time to dig into another juicy topic, alignments and morality. Because what's a session without someone arguing over whether lawful neutral means lawful unless it's inconvenient?
Oof, yes, alignments. Can't wait. But for now, thanks for hanging out with us in this wild world of skeletons, rogue, chaos, and red flags. Until next time, don't be that player.